Well, here we are, Steve and I. We've been talking now for 10 minutes or so, and he knows the state of mind that I'm in. He had prepared a topic, but he said after our conversation he would like to continue what he and I have been talking about, because right after I agreed to do a video with him, one of my friends who has helped me with my business trust called me and wanted me to call a lawyer in California that I've never met. And I've asked this friend, send me emails, but he doesn't do that. And he set up this appointment with me at the same time I'm to be recording the video with Steve. So I'm feeling really frustrated and really at odds. And I've been feeling that a lot lately. I mean, it's like a roller coaster, as I said to Steve. I'm going up and down emotionally.
Well, the other thing, Ron, you said that you're feeling a state of confusion, and you know that confusion is not from God. So, you know, that confusion you're having right now is not what you want, right?
Of course not.
And yet at the same time, you're being pulled by in different directions by various other people. You know, one person says this, and the person says that, and so when you're in a state of confusion and you're not really sure where to go, it's hard to make a decision because you feel, well, you implied a while ago, you know, you're trying to say, who is it that really is speaking positive and sharing me love versus the ones that are just trying to give me their ideas and their what they think I should do, right? Yeah,
it's really hard. I actually, there's a individual that commented on YouTube the last couple of videos, and he's saying basically that common law is whatever it's evolved or devolved into, that's all common law, and it's all, you know, there is the de facto law is the law, you know. And I finally just blocked him. I mean, I'm not even going to respond to him. This is going to be a response. And of course, the video that I did on the Declaration of Independence, that was actually a response to his comments on the previous video. So, I mean, people are pushing my buttons, and I guess I'm allowing it. But as I said, I blocked this guy. I mean, I don't want to hear that stuff. I want something that builds me up and gives me confidence. And right now, I'm hard pressed to find that, even from some of my friends.
Yeah, I understand that. Sometimes you have to ask the question, who are your friends? and then you have to ask yourself, why are they saying what they're saying? What there's a motivation behind it, you know? What is it they're trying to do? I mean, they're not living in your house. They're not living with this threat of them taking your house away from you like they are. Like you are. And so therefore it is a struggle, and it's not fair. I agree.
No, I mean, when the bank's lawyer came to me, I don't know, 2010, 2011, somewhere back there, and they still hadn't sold the house in Merritt Island. They still hadn't sold the house, and they asked for permission to have limited power of attorney so that they could sell Dr. Mary's property in Merritt Island. That's where the mortgage was. It was never on this house that I'm living in. And I granted it on the condition that I keep my house and I won't claim anything else. And there was other monies coming in if they had sold it anywhere near the value, which they did.
Well, what we're being faced here is the fact that you trusted them.
To tell the truth.
And you're finding out that you can't trust them, and that's rather devastating when we realize that we can't trust the system to work for us. So what does that mean? Well, we do have to step up and take responsibility to present our case, and that's what you're doing. And right now, you just told me a few minutes ago, before we started the video, that you're still looking for some paperwork to prove your position, which is so sad that you have to be able to do this when the system should be supporting you instead of working against you. And
people need to understand that the system is owned by the banks, and the banks are fraudsters. I mean, I'm not talking about people that your teller and your bank manager, your local bank manager. I'm not talking about those people.
But we the people have given them that authority. We've given them that we've absurd our authority, our responsibility to ourselves.
By acquiescence, not because we made a conscious decision to do
right. Collectively, that's what we've done, and that's why we're in this position. And that's what we're getting ready to do. We're going to get ready to go through this shift where we're taking back responsibility. But before we do that, we have to wake up as to who we are. We have to be able to say to ourselves, I am responsible for these things. I'm responsible for this and this and this. And then whatever negotiations we work with one another and with the government, we have to be able to prove that in some way. Be able to take responsibility, not just to prove it, but to live according to that. I guess what I'm trying to say is we become so relaxed in our thinking that we wanted to be able to live a life of peace and joy and not have to have the responsibility of living in this physical form. And that's the challenge.
Quite honestly, I'm real resentful that it's gone this far. I'm really resentful.
Yep. So therefore, we're being faced with having to deal with these things. And yeah, you're right. It's not comfortable. It's not fun, especially when you feel like you're on the side of where you're being played as the victim, and that is not a place you want to be, and none of us want to be in that place.
Yeah. Well, if they were to come, I mean, my lawyer's most recent communication was that after January the 4th, they will probably within a day, they will have armed policemen coming to my house to forcibly kick me out of my own house.
Who told you that?
This is my attorney.
Your attorney told you that?
Yeah, that's why he says I have to see him next Tuesday. He asked for Monday, but I have people coming here on Monday from South.
Okay, but so the lawyer you currently have right now, he does not see that you have a case. Is that correct?
Not unless we can prove fraud, and he said even that's an uphill battle because too much time has elapsed. There's statutes of limitations or of some kind in the de facto system, except for fraud. There's no statute of limitation on fraud, but everything else, if you don't get take recourse within a certain period of time, you've passed up your opportunity.
And he feels like you've not done that when you've been in and out of court for the last several years.
Oh, I've been in and out of court since I moved into this house.
So he's saying that you've not claimed fraud upon the bank's behalf, right?
Oh, I have.
Well, then I don't understand why he doesn't see that. Help me understand why your lawyer does not. He
hasn't. I have to get the paperwork that's stamped. I've got to take the time to go through. I mean, it's a large box, plus a whole bunch more that's not in the box.
So if you find some paperwork that he's wanting, he may feel otherwise that you have a case.
That's why we're meeting. That's why we're meeting next week with the paperwork in hand for him, and I'll be allowing him to make copies. I made the mistake with another attorney that I gave him some of my papers, and he never returned them. He says, when you gave them to me, he says, they become mine.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, lawyers are liars. I mean, I'm grateful for the exceptions, but the exceptions still are few and far between.
Yeah. Your experience is teaching us all how to learn to be responsible and how to protect ourselves by using wisdom and not just giving up our responsibility, our trust without, and that is the real issue here, Ron. And you are being an example of this for those of us who have been listening to your story and your experience. So, I'm believing that you'll be able to find that paperwork and that you'll be able to turn the tables.
Well, he told me, he says, even with the paperwork, it's going to be an uphill battle.
And I wonder why.
You have to, judges earn their retirement income based on settlements that they do in favor of the bank. They have a vested interest, which is against the law.
I was going to say, is that legal?
No.
Oh, okay.
But But lawyers are not, they do not operate lawfully. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is a con game.
Have there been judges or lawyers that have been caught doing such things?
Yes,
working with the banks, and they have been indicted?
And apparently, from some of the things that I've heard, there's more and more attorneys that are getting in trouble, that they're putting them out and say, see, we see, there is justice. So they let a few of them hang, figuratively. Yeah. But overall, they still get away with the same con games. There shouldn't be any foreclosures by any banks in the United States, because every mortgage is fraud. Every mortgage is fraud.
Yeah.
Period.
Very good. I think that what you just shared with us is interesting. Not only that, but like here again, I'm going to emphasize the fact that we are all learning from this with you. And I hope those who are watching this video can decide for themselves about their own responsibility that we all need to be taking. And also how to, in some ways, step away and avoid interaction with the banks and with I know my own experiences. I do very little banking. I just use the bank to cash checks, and that's it. I take my money right out and I put it someplace else. I've actually caught my bank trying to take me for several $100s in overdraft fees, and they wiped it out, and I walked out of there going, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And but I did, after proving to them that they were abusing the situation. So, we're all learning how, and on top of that, I'll just throw this out, that there are other friends who I've spoken to who had the same experience, or have actually ended up paying hundreds of dollars in overdraft fees when it really was not their fault.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to do people understand when I say all mortgages are fraud? Do they understand why they're fraud? And I don't think most people get it, that a valid contract by law has to have two signatures, at least two signatures of the two parties, primary parties that are involved in that contract. No. And banks never sign a mortgage.
Right. And you're making a good point there. And I've heard you say that many times. And I know that there are people out there who are listening to your videos who are understanding that. What it comes down to is the illusion of ownership. What we think is legally makes our home belong to us versus what really does make our home belong to us.
Living in it should be enough.
And in some cultures, that is the truth. Look at the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Yep. So the point I'm making is here again is that we are learning through your experience, and you're not the only one. I just have another friend who just lost his house just a couple of months ago after going through lawyers and spending a lot of money and so forth, and he himself was suspicious that the lawyers were involved with the banks, even though they were defending him.
Well, you have to understand that lawyers' first allegiance is to the Bar Association. The Bar Association is a foreign entity, yes, which under the original U.S. Constitution, people that held that position could not hold public office, period. Yeah. That was the original 13th Amendment to the Constitution. I know I'm like a broken record. I know I keep saying these things over and over again.
Well, let me just share a quick story with I had dealing with a lawyer to defend me on a contract that was broken, and I paid him a large sum of money to defend me because I felt like I had a case, and we got a hearing date, and I went in only to find out that it was a preliminary hearing. It wasn't even a real hearing, and the preliminary hearing was to decide whether or not I had a case. And all the judge did was turn the paper over of the contract and read the small print and said, "You don't have a case." And I'm thinking, why didn't my lawyer tell me that? I paid him all this money, and he just took my money. And so what I found out right after that experience is there a book called The Terrible Truth About Lawyers, And the basic gist of that book is that lawyers become judges and judges become lawyers. And they do take care of each other, like you just described. It's part of the same system. It's good for us to be aware and wise of these things. When we think we're hiring a lawyer to defend us, what are we really getting? And that's what you're dealing with right now. You were trying to find a lawyer that was going to defend you properly instead of you trying to defend yourself, and then being able to convince him that you have a ground to stand on.
Yeah, well, there are. I've seen things of attorneys that are defending people's rights and winning against the banks. It's not a big thing yet, but it is happening.
Yeah.
And this has to go on. I mean, we're not going to ever be free as long as the same people keep calling the shots and running the show. We're never going to be free. And I don't care if it's humans or some spiritual demonic entities, but something has to break the back of that crack.
What do you think it would be? Let's talk about the possibilities that would expose all this. What would it take?
Well, it's been being exposed on the internet for a long time.
Okay.
Some of the people that were the most vociferous ended up giving up their lives, and many have lost their homes, and
right.
Some have been imprisoned.
So it is going to take a number of people of losing their homes, losing all their money. And
it's sad. I mean, I feel for the people that have already faced the things that I'm facing now, and they thought that they could win, and they lost.
But for every house that's been lost to the banks is another alarm clock to the general public about what's going on.
Yeah. You would think so, except the public has been, through the mass media, brainwashed. I mean, I'm sure it's an attorney that's pointing out that the law is what is practiced, period. That's the common law because that's what's used.
Well, back to my question is, what is this going to make the difference? And it comes back to what you implied a while ago, and that is the more people that become more aware of what's going on, that is going to break down, pierce through this barrier of the system that's on there. Now, I'm speaking consciously and subconsciously, meaning in spirit, because when more people are aware of the falsehood behind all this, and we can hold on to the awareness of the truth in this, that vibration is making a difference, namely this. And I brought this up to you before. You have no idea what those lawyers are going through in their personal life, the ones that are attacking you or working for these banks. I sent you a video a few weeks ago. There was a guy who used to work for the Swiss bank.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And he was talking about how some of them were, he woke up, stepped away, and said, I'm no longer going to be involved in this banking system again. And the people who stayed, some of them are now physically sick or mentally ill. Remember him telling that story?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? Yeah. So we don't know the impact that this is making upon the judges and the lawyers and the banksters who are involved in this corruption. It is negative energy. It is physically attacking them and their families. Believe me, it is.
Yeah, well, it needs to also reach to the places of the invisible realm that is really behind the whole thing. That's what it is. It's these entities that lost their ability to feel, that lost their ability to be part of the God consciousness.
Okay, now you're alluding to spiritual entities or ETs or whatever that's inspiring.
Well, it doesn't matter whether they're extraterrestrial or where they come from. There are spiritual entities. I watched a video, or I listened to a video that a lady sent me, and she's talking about all of these beings, how they became devoid of conscience.
Okay, and here again, what's going to free us from their influences is by allowing the light and love to come into our lives, because what small group of us that are coming to an understanding, our vibration is making that difference. It's piercing through the darkness. It really is. And what's happening with these lawyers and banksters and judges and their families and who are involved in the corruption, it is part of the invisible having its way. You know, the corruption will feed and give life to something only to turn around and devour it. We know that.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So we be confident that is happening despite your story and despite your success.
My story. It's observing friends of mine that I've communicated with that have had horrible things happen to them.
Yeah. So I appreciate you being honest with me and sharing with here in the video what's going on here, because this is a challenge.
Oh, it's the challenge of our lives. My life, and I'm not the only one.
Yeah, you're right.
If we don't turn things around 180 degrees and get back to truth and honesty as the principle upon which we're going to build everything, the earth is finished. The human race is doomed as planetary beings.
I agree, but I believe we also are. We are doing exactly that. And those who are still involved in whatever degree of deception and falsehood, they are suffering. I mean, I've seen it. Even people who I would never thought. I actually see things coming into their lives. That you're going, oh my God, I'm so sorry that they're experiencing this. Why are they experiencing this? And only to find out that they have not been true to themselves and to their own heart. It's so important that we stay in tune to our heart and to our higher selves, to know who we are, because that's what's happening with you. Is you got thrown into this confusion and this spiral. You lose connection with your true self, and when you're in that state, you're vulnerable.
Yeah, well, I definitely am. I mean, I don't feel secure as a human being, period. There's no security.
I asked your viewers on your video to send you love and light, to give you peace, to pray and believe that that spirit is with you, and the spirit beings from that light and love will also give you comfort. And so I've been doing that for you for years.
Yeah, I know you have, and you're not the only one. And I'm grateful for all of those that have stood with me. It's surprising some of the ones that I thought were standing with me that seem to recently have turned.
Yeah, but
many have stood with me, and many of them probably are silent. They're just standing back,
and they're going through their own learning experience. They look at you and they get frightened, and they don't understand, and then so to defend themselves, they accuse you of whatever it is that they think you're doing wrong, when the truth is they're not dealing with their own problems.
Yeah, well, I have friends that are into some of this, don't think negative thoughts and pretend everything is blissful. I will never be in that camp, ever, 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 and I don't want to be. I want to be truthful. What I'm feeling is what I'm feeling, and if it's negative, it's negative. But there is no negative. Truth is always positive to me. Lying to yourself to try to convince yourself that things aren't as bad as they really are, or things aren't what they really. That is always a lie, and
that's not wisdom.
Never reality. It's deception, and it's self-deception.
Yes, and I totally agree with what you're saying. As long as we don't stay in the falsehood, when we see it and then we get pulled into it, the question is, how do we free ourselves? Instead of just So I'm not saying deny it or to ignore it. I'm saying call it what it is, and then transform it and change it. We have the ability to do that, I believe.
Well, then they give this false spiritual adage: "What you resist persists." That's not true.
Well, see, I disagree with you on that.
If you don't resist something that's wrong, that's what's going to persist.
Well, let me explain my position on that. You brought up a good question. When you resist something, you're actually pushing against it. What I think you're saying is is when you take a stand about with something you don't agree with. That's not the same thing. You know, in the Bible, when it talks about putting the full armor of God on and has all this description, it never says to take all the armor, the sword, now go and do battle and pierce and fight and all that stuff. It just says stand in prayer. So you put all this on, the armor of God, as part of the protection of who you are, and then you stand in that. But there is no actual battle where you go into battle, because that battle's already won. It's already done in spirit.
Yeah, well, I wish I could see that it's already done.
Well, you're right. No, that's exactly right. Because the moment you can see that it's been done, then it'll happen. Now, so what does that mean? Well, you have to stand.
When I did see it, it was not true. I was deceiving myself.
You think so?
Yeah, because there's times I thought it's already done. You know, when I started making the videos in 2011, January.
Well, then I'm going to be honest with you. If that happened, then you had not done everything you needed to do.
Yeah. See, there's always.
See, pride. There's a great deal of pride that steps into our lives, and we think we've done everything and we're done. It's over with. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And it's a dealing of pride. Like, look what I've done. When Spirit has a way of showing us, you know, maybe our pride has gotten in the way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the final results of anything are going to be. I know I wish it wasn't a battle. I mean, I really wish this thing could be easier. But I see the price that so many have paid through not just in the current situation, but through the ages. People that have tried to teach truth and teach love and stuff like that. And so many have had to suffer tremendously.
Yes, they have.
Around the world and throughout time. And it's, to me, it's such an injustice, I know some of your viewers are going to totally disagree with me on what I've just shared with you, but at the same time, this has been my experience, and it's worked for me, and it's worked for other people, for us to be able to wake up to who we are and to hold a vibration in our heart that does accomplish things. And it's not having to fight a battle, it's rather just standing in the battle or standing in the midst of what's going on and watching the enemy fall away. Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully we'll be actually seeing that in the relative near future.
So when do you go back to court?
There may not even be a court hearing if we don't. It depends on what I can provide the lawyer.
I see. Okay.
It has to be in. Something has to be into the court by the 31st of this.
Okay. Well, I'm believing that you're going to find that paperwork.
Oh, I will find the paperwork.
Okay, good. And that your lawyer will begin to see that you have a case, and then you'll be able to go back to court and defend yourself.
Yeah, and hopefully stay in my house, and
yes,
hopefully we'll start turning the system around, and more lawyers and judges and politicians will start seeing the light and learning to love themselves and love one another.
Yep.
I mean, I would love to see that happen.
The Florida sun is coming through the window here, burning me up.
I see the light. You're in the light, Steve.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages of being in Florida. And I didn't close the shade here before we started. So,
well, I have artificial lights in this room. So, anyway, thank you for taking the time to make a video with me. It's been a little less than 30 minutes, but that's fine. It's not what you had planned. It's the way.
We'll do that another time.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Steve, and namaste.
Namaste. Yeah.